Rohan. I'm one of the co-founders of QFirst, which helps Apna in their mentorship requirements. QFirst is a mentorship aggregator platform, and we are supporting Apna in Apna Exclusives for the mentorship requirements. And as Apna Exclusives, we have been doing this for the last couple of months, happening every day, weekdays at 7 p.m. and weekends at 3 p.m. The main idea is to help people ideate and advance in their professional careers. And we are covering a wide range of topics, be it financial stability, spoken English, or technical subjects like data science, career paths, and other functional skills as well. And today we have Mr. Amit Rajit with us. Who's a software engineer too at Flipkart, and he's going to take us through how to prepare for top tech product company interviews. Without much ado, Amit, over to you.
Hey, hi guys. Are you able to see me?
Yeah.
Great. Hello. Thanks all for joining. Thanks, Rohan, for the great introduction. Uh, yeah. So, as the session suggests, I'll just share my screen and go ahead with a brief intro of myself, then jump directly into the topic. Uh, I'll just share my screen. If any point of the discussion you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop your questions in the chat box. At the end, we'll check all the questions and go through them. So I'll just share my screen. Just give me a bit. I'll turn off my video for a while.
Hello.
Hey, hi. Yeah. Any queries? Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Can someone
Yeah,
confirm?
it is visible.
Cool. Cool. Let's start. Very warm afternoon. Uh, and little bit about me. I am currently a senior software engineer in Flipkart and have an experience of over 4 years in the industry. Have taken more than 100 plus technical interviews for Flipkart. Uh, have been an avid competitive programmer in my college days. Got some experience from that. Went and participated in different college competitions, ACM, ICPC, national level competitions. Have also been blogger, and I write a lot of technical articles, blogs on Medium, and they have a lot of views. So very much in the community in terms of any kind of technical stuff, be it distributed programming, distributed systems, preparing for interviews, machine learning, etc. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. Let me jump into the topic quickly. Okay, can someone confirm if they're able to see the slideshow?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we are seeing. Okay.
Thank you, thank you. Sure. So I think one of the major things that I want to highlight as a part of preparation and cracking good product-based companies is preparing your profile in a good way. And I think there are a few major segments to that. One being having good internships. So the reason behind this slide is that I wanted to highlight one of the points that I had around 4 internships while I was at university, and I was active in various forums. So this slide is just giving an example, and I'll dive into each topic one by one. One by one. There is some noise from the background. Guys, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Sure. So this is a little bit about my internships. I did a few internships at small companies, at big companies, at startups, at universities as research scholars. I'll go in depth as in how I crack these and how you guys also can follow some of these tips and some of these suggestions, and you can go ahead and do those things also.
Sir, hello.
But
Actually, we are not seeing clearly that the screen.
you're not seeing clearly. Can someone
Yeah, yeah.
else confirm if
No,
it is
it's
the
clear.
same?
It's clear.
Okay.
Anyone
It's
who is not
clear.
able to see it clearly can just log out
Clear
and
है.
log. It's clear.
Sure. You can probably
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to rejoin and
Ask,
check
ask,
this.
no, articles that are showing no that what will
Article
you
data in
done
the
today. That the small letters on they are not clearly seen. Okay, just that is the problem. Nothing else.
I think Amit
Okay,
can just go ahead. Yeah, thanks.
sure, sure. So at a very high level, what will you be learning today? We'll be going through why there are multiple interview rounds in product-based companies and what are the rounds like. Uh, I see a lot of people asking me about they are not getting interview calls. From they apply for multiple companies via these websites, via LinkedIn and other kind of uh, websites, and they don't get a interview call. Once you get an interview call, what you might be facing, and a little bit about the preparation tips and mantras, and then we'll have a Q&A section at the end, right? So let's start with the first section. What are the different interview rounds, and why we have multiple interview rounds ideally? So think about this: that you are kind of you have your own company and you want to hire few set of folks for your company. So you get a resume. Would you be very confident taking the hiring the person directly from the resume? Or let's say you don't get the resume, you just get the projects that this person has done. Will that be sufficient? So think about it like this. For example, you're buying a expensive car or a bike or anything for yourself. Would you actually buy that? Will you invest that amount of money to buy that car or bike or whatever without getting a trial, without getting a test drive of that car, right? Similarly, it's a very similar thing. Recruiters also want to judge you. They want to see that actually how good you are. uh, of course, in a very simulated environment and in a very test environment, that how do you perform in a pressure situation, how do you perform when you are given a problem, what are how do you take down the problem, how do you think about the problem. These are the things that a recruiter or interviewer will check when you are actually applying for when you're sitting for interviews for big tech product based companies, right? So I'll go into a you know just a second. I'll go into a few topics, and first is what you would need to land an interview. So a lot of people tell me that they are not getting calls. They are, applying for these via LinkedIn jobs, via Naukri, all of these places, but they're not getting any calls. They're not getting any reverted, emails and any kind of things like that. So what are the things that you need to highlight, right? Number one, resume. Uh, yeah. Number one is the resume. So make sure that your resume is the first piece of document that the recruiter sees, which gets handed over to the interviewer, hiring manager, and then slowly the team, right? So if the recruiter does not find your resume worth investing their time, you'll be rejected in the first round. So the first piece of identity you have as a whenever you're applying for the job is your resume. So make sure your resume should be crisp and clear, right? You don't want to make it 5 pages long, 3 pages or 4 pages long. Keep it crisp, keep it compact, and keep it clear to the point. This way, the recruiter will understand that what are the skills you have, and whether if you want to highlight certain skills for a job, they will actually match your requirements of the job. Number two, LinkedIn profile. Once they see your resume, someone who's checking your resume on their laptop, which is what happens nowadays, right? These recruiters, they are checking your resumes on the uh, virtually, right? You submit a resume PDF and they check that. So so the next thing they do check is the LinkedIn profile that you have. So as soon as I click on the LinkedIn profile link, it should number one be public. Your entire LinkedIn profile should be publicly uh, viewable. So anyone who has not even logged into LinkedIn should be able to view your entire profile. So make sure that is there. But how will you optimize your LinkedIn profile? Make sure that your name, your picture, your headlines, and your current experience. If you're in the university, make sure you add the details that what are you studying, when are you going to graduate. If you're in the current some company, make sure you add the name of the company, since when you're working there, what are the tech stacks you're working on, right? What is the work you're doing in your current company? Those things you have to highlight. Once I'm in the LinkedIn profile, the next section I would go is the GitHub or any kind of blog that you have, right? So if you have a GitHub blog or any Medium blog or any GitHub repositories that you kind of maintain. Hello. Yeah. Anyway, I'll continue. So if you have any GitHub page, make sure you maintain the GitHub and you keep on posting on GitHub. So for example, if you look on GitHub, there will be a contribution section where it shows that in the last 1 year how much you have contributed. So make sure you contribute to GitHub more frequently, or even if you don't have a GitHub, make sure you contribute somewhere else. Make sure you have a Medium blog or a WordPress blog, somewhere that you show that you are putting some extra efforts. Whatever you're doing, because resume is a very short document. You have to write a lot of things about, let's say you did a project, you have to add a lot more details about that. So you can do that in GitHub. You can showcase that work in a WordPress document or something, right? And number four, which never goes out of fashion, is your networking. uh, Make sure you network. So you get a connection on LinkedIn, talk to them, understand the company that they're working in, what type of work they're doing, or even not in LinkedIn, even let's say in your college, in your campus, or in any hackathon that you go, any kind of networking events you come across, make sure you interact with the people from the industry. Try to find opportunities to do that. There are a lot of hackathons or events that happen nowadays, both online and offline. Try to join those, try to interact with more people. You never know from where you can get your next opportunity. So yeah, that's about this one. So like to give you a brief idea, this was about me. This was where I was when I was looking for I think 2 or 3 years back, when I was looking for a change. I'll tell you, like at least 70% of the opportunities I got was from LinkedIn. So I applied on LinkedIn, and around 70 to 80% of calls or interview calls I got was from LinkedIn. So I'm telling you, LinkedIn is one of the most strongest form of way you can get hired. One of the strongest professional platforms. So make sure your LinkedIn is updated. It's very clear about what you're doing, what your current work is about, right? Then you can network. Applying in career portal never goes out of fashion. You need to network. You need to apply. You need to put random emails on all of that. But make sure your LinkedIn should be the place that should have the updated information. Cool. I'll go to the next section. That's what you might face. Essentially, what once you get the interview call, what you would be facing, right? So, at a very high level, I have categorized companies into 4 or 5 buckets, right? Uh, this is like, let's say, Google type of companies, then there are Amazon type companies, then there's Microsoft type companies, then there is Flipkart type companies and related startups, related big tech companies, and there are some Intuit like companies. You might not be familiar with all of these, but I'll give you a walkthrough as in how the hiring process looks different for different types of companies. So okay, so every company go through a resume shortlisting process. So even though you are referred or you apply on the career portal, you will see that every company will do a resume shortlisting process. So this is very similar, and you guys mostly know about how this happens, right? I already discussed how you should prepare your resume so that it gets shortlisted. There is a section after this where I'll go in depth of the resume, but at a very high level, you guys understood that resume shortlisting is the first step. But before resume shortlisting, you will not be going through the next steps. Then there are some screening exams, right? Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, they have a screening test, right? What is a screening test? So this ensures that they reduce the number of applicants. So they get thousands and 10,000s and multiple more than that applications every day, right? So they cannot go ahead and invest their time in interviewing all of them. So there's a screening test, which is usually a hacker rank or a hacker earth, hacker rank, or CodeChef kind of online platform, code signal kind of tests. For example, Microsoft conducts their test on Codility. It's a platform that they maintain. Amazon has their own platform. Multiple Uber and all, they perform similar tests on code signal kind of platform. So you get it, right? HackerRank kind of tests. Usually there's no one to monitor, but your camera has to be on, your screen has to be shared, and it will be monitored that you should, there's a allotted time, usually 1 hour of time. Within that, you have to solve 2 or 3 problems. So they are usually data structures and algorithm problems. So these are how the screening tests look like. A lot of companies do that. Google does not have a direct screening test. I'll come to the next part. Let's check this take-home task. Intuit is a little bit unique. Intuit and a few other companies like that. So what they do is they have a take-home task. So what they'll do is, before even taking the screening test, they'll give you a task that, hey, this is a um, piece of assignment that you have to solve on your own. You are given 24 hours or you are given 48 hours, 2 days. Take your time, solve this, and submit the answer, right? So this is a way that usually the questions are much bigger in this. The questions would be look like, build a project that would solve a problem, right? Build a project that would like build a calculator application, like end-to-end application, or build a to-do application or something like that, right? It's a much bigger problem that you need to spend a few hours to solve, and it will be a take-home test. It won't be monitored or anything, but you should make sure what code you're writing. You can Google, you can search, use Stack Overflow, you can use you know GitHub Copilot or chat GPT or anything, and you can come up with these answers. But make sure you know what you did. It should not be that you just Googled it, you just use chat GPT and you don't know what you did, right? So this is a take-home test. Screen test I've discussed. Next is the technical phone interview, which is usually the first step for Google, right? So what they do is they'll usually set up some 45 to 1 hour round with you. It'll be a phone discussion. Uh, it's called phone screen also sometimes. So what they do is usually a recruiter would also join the call, and there is one of the engineers if you are applying for an engineering interview. So there'll be a few very basic questions discussed with you, which won't be as difficult as these screening tests, but they would be very basic questions, 1 or 2 basic questions in a 1 hour time. They can ask you those questions on a whiteboard, or they can ask you those questions on a hacker rank like coding pad, right? So you have to be prepared for anything in this case. So they can ask you on a code signal kind of coding pad kind of thing, that they'll give you some questions and they'll ask you to code that. Or they can also give you a whiteboard and say that, how would you solve this? Give me the pseudocode for this, right? Dry run a code or something. So this is usually the technical phone interview. So anything beyond this line, beyond this technical phone interview, so anything on the left hand side of these, you can get rejected at any point of the interview, right? You fail that screening test, you won't be going to the next round. You fail the technical phone interview, you won't be going to the next round. You cannot solve the take home task, you won't be going to the next round. So all these rounds are generally elimination rounds. Anything I discuss after this are usually, once you go through this fourth stage, the fourth column that I am highlighting now. Uh, 1 second. Let me check if I can highlight it. Okay. Anyway, once you go through this round, then you be part of a hiring loop. So they will set up multiple, interview rounds for you. For example, Google would set up 3 to 4 different rounds for you. They would immediately set up 2 rounds for you. Once you go through that, they'll again set up 2 more rounds for you. Similarly, Amazon would set up 3 or 4 rounds for you directly after you cross this round, right? Same for Flipkart, same for Intuit, everyone. So they will usually set up 2 to 3 different rounds for you, which can be DSA rounds, which can be technical rounds. But think about it, you become part of a hiring loop now. So once you are part of a hiring loop, you get more opportunity that, let's say today's interview did not go well, you will not be eliminated, but you have to make sure that, let's say you have 2 or 3 rounds, your overall performance in all these rounds is beyond is better than it's good, right? It has to be good, the overall performance. So at least, let's say if you have 3 rounds, you need to make sure that you perform very well in 2 rounds if you did not perform well in 1 round, or you have to make sure that you performed well in all the 3 rounds. If somehow 2 of the rounds went bad and one of the rounds was good, you might still be rejected. So basically it's a 3 or 4 interviews that are taken together, one after the other, in different days or different time of the day, and the total score is considered, right? You can expect DSA, data structures and algorithms. You can expect technical questions. You can expect questions from object-oriented programming, from databases, anything that you're applying for. So if you're a database engineer, you would expect questions from SQL. You'd expect questions from databases, right? If you're a software engineer, you would expect questions from data structures, algorithms, little bit about databases, object-oriented programming. If you're a data engineer applying for data engineer roles, you need to prepare for data engineering practices such as SQL is there, big data structures are there. You need to prepare for essentially your domain of work for these rounds. For companies like Flipkart, Uber, Swiggy, there is one unique round which is called machine coding round. So this machine coding round is a little bit unique. Why? Because they'll give you a problem. Let's say they'll tell you that design a car parking lot, or design a splitwise. So I think a lot of us have used splitwise type of application where you go on a trip or something with your friends, you share the cost of certain expenses, right? So they would tell you that, hey, design this application. We don't want a UI, or we don't want something very complicated, but this is the functional requirement and you have to code. So this coding would look like, object-oriented programming. You would have to design classes, you have to design. So essentially, this is also called a low-level design now, where you're given a problem, you have to design the functional, you have to solve all the functional requirements of the requirement, right? So this is called a machine coding round or a low-level design round. Essentially, what is looked is if you're good at coding some problem, right? It's not a algorithmic problem, but if you're good at how you write code, what is your style of writing code, right? Your code should be clean, your code should be maintainable. These things is what check. And then in the final round, different companies again have different processes. For example, Google has a Googliness interview round, right? What is a Googliness interview round? It is same as a hiring manager round, but it's a little bit different. They ask questions which are more specific to Google, right? So for example, they would ask you questions that if you are in a situation where, let's say, you have a conflict or if you have a fight with your manager, how would you deal with that? If you have a fight or conflict with your teammate, how would you deal with that? So that is what Googliness or hiring manager rounds generally look like. Uh, in Amazon, the same thing is known as a bar raiser round. So they also have something which is called a leadership round. So Amazon has few leadership principles. There are around 12 leadership principles that Amazon has. So you need to go through that. You need to go through that list. Just Google about that Amazon leadership principles. You will get to know about 12 different leadership principles that you should ideally have in your traits, in your behavioral skills to be able to be successful at Amazon. So you need to make sure you read that, you prepare that, and in any answer that you give, you need to somehow involve those leadership principles. So that's why it's called a bar raiser round, because the psychology at Amazon is that if there are 10 people in the team and they are hiring you as the 11th person, you should increase the average performance of the team. So if you find the average of the 10 people, that you should be higher than that. That is the principle of uh, hiring at Amazon, right? You should be raising the bar. So similarly at Microsoft also we have a bar raiser and a hiring manager round, and in all the companies who have a hiring manager round, right? So that is about it. And then sometimes in Google has this process of team fitment, where once you are through all these stages, they would try to match you to a specific team, team match kind of round. So they would ask you that what are your skills, what have you worked on. So based on that, they'll see which team matches your skill. You might have to talk to different managers and see which team you like the most. So that is not as uh, focused on interview, but that is more about understanding what your interests are. So based on that, your team would be chosen. Cool. We'll go to the next slide. Just a second. Cool. Yeah, I think mostly I discussed these things. Technical phone round screening is essentially the where you would be part of a Zoom call or any screening call. Uh, Technical on-site is the one that I discussed, where you would be expected to solve problem-solving data structure kind of problems. Machine coding round, as I discussed already, this is like Flipkart, Swiggy, Uber, Cultfit kind of companies do ask this kind of round, where it's expected that you would be able to solve some low level problems, right? Such as you are given a problem like, as I discussed, splitwise kind of problem, you should be able to solve it functionally using any language of your choice, right? Guys, if you have any questions, please do add in the chat. I'll have a look at them at the end of the session. Cool. Just a second. Cool. Then we have system design rounds. System design rounds are a little bit uh, more senior specific round. If you have, let's say, less than 3-4 years of experience, you won't be asked this round. But if you have more than 3 years or 4 years or 5 years of experience, a lot of companies will ask you a system design round. So what system design round is like, they would ask you to design a big scale system. For example, design Facebook or design the application we are currently working on, which is Google Meet, right? Design Google Meet. If you have to design Google Meet, how would you do that? So in these kind of problems, you have to take care of the scale. You have to take care of, okay, I'll have, hundreds of people joining in a meeting at the one time, or 200 people joining in the meeting at the one time. So you have to think about that kind of scale. This is a little bit senior specific round, which discusses more about the high level design, right? Then I discussed about the leadership principle round, which already discussed that, in the hiring manager round, they would expect you to know the 12 leadership principles of Amazon. And the good thing is that even if you're not interviewing for Amazon, you can go ahead and you can read about these 12 leadership principles. It is a, in general, uh, good thing to know about any kind of behavioral interview. So even if you're not interviewing for Amazon, let's say you're interviewing some other company, even if you go ahead and read about these 12 leadership principles, you would learn a lot and your behavioral skills will also increase. Uh, Similarly, Google has the same hiring manager round, which they call Googliness round. What they do in Googliness round is that they check for a Googliness factor, which is a Google term for them. So essentially, what that means is that any situational question that they will be asked, as I gave you an example already, um, you have to answer that in a star method. Star method is nothing but you have to answer it that, okay, this was the problem I faced. This is the steps I took. This is the action I did, and this is the result, right? So follow a very structured method for answering your questions. That's what they look for. Similarly, hiring manager round, which is different from HR round. A lot of people confuse hiring manager round with HR round. They are not the same. HR round you discuss with HR. Hiring manager round you discuss with hiring manager. They are two different positions in the company. Hiring manager would ask you questions on engineering topics. HR would generally not ask you anything in-depth engineering topics. They would ask you about your experience and all. But HMs, hiring managers, would be asking you a lot of in-depth topics. They are generally engineering managers or senior engineering managers or directors who would ask you questions about your experience. So you have to make sure that you are answering the technical questions in a very good manner, right? And this is generally a very open-ended round. There is nothing you can specifically prepare. They can ask you to code a question, they can ask you about your project, they can ask you anything from your resume. So make sure you overall know about your resume. That's the only way you can prepare for a hiring manager round. Cool. I'll go to the preparation mantras now. Some of the tips from my side that I think you can you can implement to uh, revise and prepare for an interview. So first thing, you have to prepare your resume and prepare your projects. If you do not have a good resume, preparing data structures, algorithms, preparing for anything else is just a waste of time. As I discussed, the first step to getting shortlisted is a resume and a LinkedIn. So make sure you have a good resume, you have good projects in the resume. So make sure you spend some time while you're preparing in 1 month of time or 2 months of time, building some good sample pet projects and working on those, right? Building a resume, because resume building is also very important part of the entire preparation, right? Once you have a resume prepared, next part is the revision. So fundamental concepts, for example, what is an array, what is a stack, what is a queue, what is object-oriented programming, what are databases, how do they work. Revising these fundamental concepts is very important. And the third part is applying for mock interviews and starting for actual job applications, right? So mock interviews are very important. I'll go to that section and I'll discuss how would you do that. Yeah, and then applying for jobs. So let's go ahead in the first part, which is the preparation of resume. So critically, when you look at it, a resume should be one page. It should be ATS compliant. It should have a 10-second rule. So what does one page means? The resume should not exceed more than one page. Your entire resume should be inside one page. As long as you have less than 10 years of experience, there is no reason to have a two-page resume. You should know how to reduce your you should know how to reduce your experience and highlight the important experiences inside one page, right? It should never exceed one page. Number two, ATS compliance. So nowadays resumes are not usually manually checked as much. They are manually checked also, but first they go through a screening process through a ATS, application tracking system, which check your resume, which check basically that is your resume matching the job application skills, right? So what you need to do is you need to take care of the keywords that in your resume. So if you're a front-end engineer, let's say I'm giving an example, let's say you're a front-end engineer, you need to write the keywords like React, Angular, you have worked on Vue, you have worked on drop downs, you have worked on certain skills, you have created tables, HTML, CSS. So the keywords are important because the keywords is what the ATS systems look for. The third major rule is the 10-second rule. So the idea is that whenever you see a resume, so for example, I am a recruiter, you give me your resume, I see your resume for the first time, I would have the attention on your resume for only the top first 10 seconds. So think about it that your resume should be good enough to grab the attention of the recruiter within the first 10 seconds, because on average it is statistically this is a data that any recruiter does not spend more than 10 seconds going through your resume on average, right? If your resume goes to the 10-second rule, so if your resume is interesting enough even after 10 seconds, then this recruiter will check it for longer time, for a minute or two, right? But within the first 10 seconds, if it's not able to grab the attention of the recruiter, then it will go into the trash bin, right? So think about it like that when you're preparing your resume. What is one of the good ways I personally found to be very good when I was preparing my resume? I would usually create my resume and I would send it to my friends or my professors or someone, or my friends or parents, anyone. Send it to anyone. Send your resume to your friends, to people you know, to your networks, and tell them that, hey, I have prepared this resume. Can you help me review this? Do you have a feedback about this? If there is any feedback, you get some good constructive feedback about your resume and make sure you make the changes for that, right? So make sure you review your resume with peers, with your mentors before you actually apply for the job. So I have taken a small example of a resume, and this is what a good resume should look like. So as you can see, the name is highlighted at the top. There's the address, there's the phone number and the email. So these are the first point of contact. So your name should be the biggest font in the resume. And then you would have, if I want to contact you, I would need your phone number or your email and what is your address. So these things should be at the top of the resume. Then this section, as you can see, is the employment section for experiences section. At a very high level, this person has highlighted that he or she was a software engineer intern at this company, and what are the experiences that he or she worked on, right? He improved this some feature by 75% by implementing some algorithm. Similarly, just look at it at how the entire time has been also given, that this was the period that this person was working on from 2003 to 2005, right? Was a lead student ambassador. So any experience that you have, make sure you highlight your contribution the growth, the improvement that you did in a similar format, right? Cool. And this is the second section of the resume where you have the education, and under the education section you have all the degrees that you have done, during what time your education, current education if you are currently in the university, or past education wherever you studied, whatever. So make sure you give the dates, the GPA, which is the, in India, which is the CGPA, right? The percentage, you can give anything, the important courses that you did, right? They should, like, a recruiter should know that you studied computer science or you studied electronics engineering, right? Make sure you highlight those things. Then you have to add the projects. So you might have done 10 different projects, but make sure you add top 2 or 3 important projects. You do not want to make your resume more than 1 page, so make sure you add the top projects that you think is the best projects, right? The technical skills that you gathered during that project, and what this project was essentially about, right? For example, this is a synchronized calendar, desktop calendar with globally shared and synchronized calendars, allowing users to schedule meetings with other users. So this is a synchronized calendar, which was built during the time of 2003 and 4. So very high level, I can understand what this project was about and what are the skills this person learned from the project, right? And then if there are any kind of experiences or any kind of additional rewards or recognitions you have got from the college or from your previous job, that, and then the languages and technologies that you have worked on or the languages that you're familiar with, right? This is what an ideal resume should look like if you want to get shortlisted right away, right? I'll go to the DSA section. I just want to check if there are any major questions or raise of hands. Just a second. Uh, Rohan, can I take some questions now before I go to
Yeah,
the next
yeah,
section?
yeah, sure, sure. You have
Sure.
enough time. Yeah.
I think Jwala has a question. Jwala, can you unmute yourself and ask a question? You have raised your hand. Okay. Cool. If there are no questions, Ankush has a question. Ankush, you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, sir. Actually, I have shared my resume in the chat. Could you check it out? Actually, it's a dummy resume. I made it in like 2 pages format, but I do have like 2 years, 3 years career gap, and I don't know how to approach the companies right now. So could you
Makes
check
sense.
my?
Ankush, since it's a live session, we'll not be able to do that right away. Maybe at the end
Okay,
of the session, if you have time, you can stay back and we can do
okay,
that.
okay.
Sure. Any questions if you have on the part we discussed?
Uh, I'll ask at the end. No problem.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Cool. Let's go ahead then. Uh, cool. So, in terms of revising, how would you revise? You would brush up the DSA, essentially any kind of data structure and algorithm skills. Make sure you know the list of topics that you need to prepare. I also have shared that in this slides, that what are some important topics that you should prepare, right? You can take a screenshot of this page also. You have to prepare arrays and strings, stacks, queues, linked lists, recursion, sets, hash maps, greedy, dynamic, all of this, right? These are some of the very important and interviewer friendly topics that they would look for if they're hiring for a software engineer in a product based company, right? So make sure you brush up on these skills. Number two, what I feel is you need to know how to solve problems within a given time, right? So for example, if you are solving a given problem, right? If you're solving, let's say, a certain problem here, let's say you're solving a certain recursion based problem, make sure you know that uh, you take a problem, you solve it for a while, you know that I took 45 minutes to solve this problem. uh, Make sure you spend more time understanding how you solve the problem and try to reduce the time. Essentially, just keep a track of that. I'm taking 45 minutes to solve this problem. Next time when I solve the problem, it should take less than that. It should take 35 minutes. right? And once you have prepared these topics, make sure you use a stopwatch or something to measure your performance, your entire time you have taken to solve a problem, right? For example, why you have to do this is because in a real life setting you would be given 1 hour to solve 2 or 3 problems, and if you're taking 45-50 minutes to solve one problem, you'll never be able to solve 2 or 3 problems in 1 hour. So you have to reduce the time you take. You have to give yourself the pressure situation, the nervous, the tension situation. You have to simulate that in your own environment, and you have to solve problems in lesser time. That's why use a stopwatch once you're prepared, and try to solve problems within a given time, right? Try to take a less and less time as you can, right? So now I'll be talking about little about design problems. As I said, there is a low level design and a high level design section, machine coding section. So how would you ideally prepare for those? That's a very important question a lot of people ask. How do I prepare for these things? Because when you are 2 years or 3 years of experience, you ideally won't have experience, as much experience working on these type of problems. Very few of you guys might be having that experience, right? So the best way to take is real life examples. For example, uh, we most of us use food delivery apps, right? Like Zomato, Swiggy. So take an example of that app and think about the scale at which they are solving the problem of delivering food to a lot of people, right? Go to Google and search about how do they make the app available for thousands and millions and billions of people at the same time, right? Because when it's evening, entire India is probably, all the major cities are probably on their Zomato or Swiggy app and trying to search for restaurants and try to search for food, right? So look at that type of scale and think about how would you solve these type of problems. How would you solve a Netflix like system? How would you solve a system which like an Amazon or a Flipkart type system where e-commerce is happening at the scale of billions of people, right? So these are some of the problems that you would be, at a high level you can prepare for. Zomato, how would you deliver, how would you create an app like Zomato? You don't have to code or anything, but at a very high level, think about how would you logically solve a problem like Zomato or Netflix or Amazon, so that you are prepared for system design rounds, right? So there are multiple components, right? You have load balancer, you have DNS, domain name systems, you have caching services, you have databases, web services. So you need to know about all these components first, and how would you stitch these components together to come up with the final product. So for example, Google Meet itself, this is Google Meet, but behind Google Meet, there are multiple load balancers, multiple caching services, multiple databases running. That's why we are able to use Google Meet. So you have to learn about how do these kind of systems work. How do you visualize a big problem statement into smaller problem statements that you can solve, right? How can you stitch multiple components like a load balancer and a cache together, or a cache and a database together to come up to solve a problem? So these are the types of problems that you need to look for, right? Uh, cool. Next, ideally, as I discussed, mock interview. This is the last phase of the preparation, where one of the most efficient ways through which you can understand how you're performing is mock interview. It's by practice. So, for example, if you are preparing for the last 3 or 4 months and you are not sure how you are performing, right? How you are prepared or not. So very simply, ask your friend from college, or ask your, someone, your friend or your brother or sister, anyone. Just take a mock interview. They have to act like an interviewer. They have to ask few set of questions, and you have to kind of simulate that situation that you are giving an interview. This is a real interview, right? And think about yourself in a real interview scenario and take that interview. There are also lots of websites that help you. You can check exponent.com. You can check, there are many websites, just Google about it, interviewing.io, right? There are many websites which help you prepare for mock interviews, but you can also do it on your own. Just ask your friend to interview, right? This is nothing, but this is just a practice scenario. So for example, when as I've given this example in this slide, for example, let's say when Virat Kohli is preparing for a big India Pakistan match, he would always spend a lot more time in the nets before the actual game, right? Because the better you are at practicing in the before the game, the he'll actually be performing much better in the game. So similarly, you have to perform. If you want to perform well in the real interview, you have to make sure you do more and more mock interviews, more and more practices. They are like net sessions, right? You have to do much more net sessions before you go to the actual match. So that's why mock interviews are one of the most important things when you prepare actively for product-based companies, right? So yeah, that's mostly about it. And then the final step: apply, apply, and apply. Because without applying, you would not be getting the calls. And once you're prepared, once your resume is on point, once your preparation is on point, once you have done a lot of mock interviews, you know that your preparation is at a good level, your resume is very strong. Then you just have to apply, reach out to recruiters, use LinkedIn Jobs, use Naukri portals, right? Use job portals, career portals of certain sites. You can go to Amazon, Google, Flipkart, Microsoft, Uber, all these websites. Go to their career portal, apply for the job, right? Apply for the specific job that you're looking for, right? uh, you have to keep on applying. The more you apply, the more your chances will be. So that's about it. That's about it from my side. If any questions, please, the session is over to you. So yeah, please ask me. I see one raise of hand. Ankush, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me this opportunity to ask you a question. The thing is, I graduated in 2021 from computer science engineering, but and later on got an MNC experience around like 7 months, and decided to go for masters later. But that plan dropped, and I got a huge career gap till now. And I don't know like how to approach companies and all. Usually, the companies tend to hire the fresher batches, and some of my seniors suggested you should go for the startups, but startups are also not hiring me right now. So what would you suggest me like to do?
Uh, so I think, see, a career gap in your resume is something that you would, of course, as a hiring manager, I would not appreciate, because that indicates that you are someone with a total experience of 3 years, but actual effective experience of less than 7 months, right? In your case, right? So if you have to at a level, if you're working at a level of someone who's a fresher, they would also assign you that role. So what I feel, one way to handle this is, uh, as your friend suggested, apply to startups, but don't expect that you would be getting a senior level role, right? Your roles are based on your skills, right? If you are not upskilling yourself, you would be getting the same role. You'd be getting the initial junior level role. So you have to spend that time in that company, in that startup, and you have to upskill yourself. Either do that. The alternate way is upskill yourself, join some kind of boot camp, or any kind of, do these courses online, right? There are so many courses available online nowadays, and you can do these courses online, do these certifications online, so that it shows that you have put some effort upskilling yourself in the last, let's say, whatever time the lag is. Let's say you have a 2 year gap. So make sure you upskill yourself so that you can justify that 2 year gap. And there should be a reason that you can justify that, right? Because you cannot simply say that I just have a 2 years gap because I couldn't find anything. Make sure you have a reason that you were preparing for something, or you had some other aim in life at that time, and now you want to join this thing, right? You changed your life's goal or something in that way. So there can be a lot of things you can come up with, but make sure they're valid reasons, and you can justify that with examples. If you're preparing for a civil service examination, you should be able to justify that, right? A lot of reasons, but I would suggest be truthful as much as you can, but make sure you do the work, you do the certifications or courses that would make it easier for them to hire you. You cannot have zero experience and expect them to hire you in a senior role, right? So you have to upskill yourself to a level where they can also, you can come to a middle point between both of you, right? So yeah, that's I think one good way to handle that.
Okay. And also I have shared my resume link. Can you review it? Like is it possible?
Sure, I can do that offline. Sure, I can do that offline. You can send me a invite on LinkedIn. I can get back to you on that. Right?
Okay, okay,
Probably
okay.
not in the
Thank
live
you.
session. Sure.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amit. Thank you for the insightful session. Meanwhile, I've also shared the feedback forms and a specific link to register yourself to the Apna Exclusives link, which will help you get access to all the recordings. But I also would request everyone to take up the feedback, which will help us improve the sessions on a daily basis. The feedback forms and the Apna link is on the chat box. We'll wait for another couple of minutes, and if there are no questions, I think we'll sign off, Amit. All right. Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you again. Thank you for taking out your time on a Saturday, and thank you everybody else who has joined the session on a Saturday. I'll see you again tomorrow for another session. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Bye. Have
Bye
a good
bye.
day.
चल रहा? आज कब चल रहा? कब देगा आज? आज कब चल रहा? आज पंख के पास बहुत गर्मी लग रही है। बहुत क्या है